Hi everyone, I'm Fo, and in today's video we're going to talk about Afro hair care accessibility. I have my notes with me, so I'm going to be looking down every once in a while to make sure that I stay on track. So what am I defining as Afro hair care accessibility? I'm defining Afro hair care accessibility as people of African descent, wherever they're located on Earth, wherever they're located globally, being able to access helpful hair care resources, hair care knowledge, or hair care services at a variety of price points ranging from free to different paid price points. So that's what I'm defining as Afro hair care accessibility. Basically, people of African descent being able to get those services, that knowledge, those resources like products and things like that in order to care for their hair as best as possible for them. So that's how I'm defining this. And so what's the current state of Afro hair care accessibility? What's the current state? The current state is, I would say that things are on the up and up. Things are on the up and up because of the internet. The internet has made the world smaller in a sense. So the way that influencers, black hair influencers, and when I say black, I'm not just referring to African American, I'm referring to anybody of African descent. The way that black influencers stepped up to the plate with the dawn of YouTube, and they got online, and they, not just YouTube, but blogs and things as well, but they got online and they discussed their hair care experiences and wanted to share knowledge in order to be helpful. That's one way that the accessibility to hair care knowledge was increased. And then also now we have more professionals moving into the virtual hair care space to discuss hair care on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. And so because of that, now we also have a lot more professional information. It's also important for me to emphasize that before stylists began to enter the internet space the way they're entering it now, there were stylists that traveled in order to provide hair care education to other stylists that work with hair for people of African descent. I also think about how Madam C.J. Walker, if we want to reach back, traveled and had an international way of impacting hair care education for people of African descent. And also think about things like hair shows and events like that, where hairstylists have worked hard, some hairstylists have worked hard to provide that face-to-face education for people of African descent. So I just wanted to emphasize that even before the way that there's sort of this deal where many stylists are expected to be influencers, even before that, there are some stylists that I want to make sure to give credit that we're trying to provide Afro hair education on a wider scale to pull from because of the internet. And also some professionals are providing online virtual services, consultations online, or they're providing education online, whole curriculums online for consumers as well as professionals. So hair care accessibility is on the up and up for people of African descent. It really is. But despite it being on the up and up because of the internet, there's still a lot of issues. Like when we think about how many people of African descent globally don't have internet access. When we think about how many people of African descent, where they're located, they don't have someone locally they can go to in person for hair care advice, because virtual information is great. And also it is extremely helpful to be able to go to somebody in person and get hair care education. And then there's also this issue of the overall quality of life of people of African descent globally. When we think about our overall quality of life, many of us are impoverished. Many of us don't have access to clean water. Many of us don't have access to nutritious meals. Many of us don't have access to things that are priorities in terms of us having a good quality of life. And a secondary thought or a secondary result of these things is not having the best hair care, not being able to care for our hair adequately if we don't have a good quality of life due to whether it's classism or racism or whatever form of predominant oppression is causing that sort of lack of quality of life. So these things impact Afro hair care accessibility. And I know some people might say hair is not that big of a deal, but hair is the niche that I've chosen to take on when it comes to justice as a specialty. The niche that I've chosen to take on when it comes to justice for people of African descent, because somebody's got to do it. Even if hair is not the biggest deal, somebody has to provide advocacy in that niche, right? And so I also want to say that I feel like, I feel like because when we are sick as human beings, often one of the places it shows up is our hair, right? So I feel the same way when I look at social structures when it comes to people of African descent. So one of the ways we can tell something about the social setting that that person is in as a person of African descent, we could probably read so much about the social setting that they're in and quality of life and all these sort of things by a person's hair. I'm not saying that'll always be the case with people of African descent, but oftentimes by someone's hair, how someone's hair has been cared for and things like that, I feel like it can be very telling in terms of the quality of life of that person. So I do want to commend, and I've sort of already touched on this, I do want to commend us once again for the ways that we are increasing accessibility to hair care knowledge through our use of the internet as influencers or hair professionals. And then also there are more companies that are creating products for how many people of African descent are wanting to wear their hair now. So there is, and I know that some people still have a scarcity where they're located, and I understand that. I know specifically in the context of the West, there are a lot of people creating a lot more hair products in order to address the needs, the styling needs and things like that of people of African descent. So there's that. It's because maybe 10, 15 years ago, things were very, very skimpy in terms of me as a black person being able to go in the store and pick up a product that would help me create a beautiful wash and go, or pick up a product where the shampoo is just right and not too drying, or I can get a range of shampoos, some that are more deeply cleansing and some that are more moisturizing. Things weren't like that maybe about 15 years ago in terms of accessibility to products, especially just being able to go into larger stores like a Target or a Walmart or something like that. And so there's that. And so I can't wait for there to be even more product accessibility for people that aren't in the West. So what is Afro hair care accessibility not? What is it not? So the first thing, I'm going to read it. Afro hair care accessibility is not the belief that influencers are obligated to stand in the gap where people are not getting hair care information from professionals. Afro hair care accessibility is not the belief that influencers are obligated to stand in the gap where people are not getting hair care information from professionals. I, as an influencer, as a black hair influencer, I felt this weight where sometimes I feel like people are expecting the information that they aren't able to pay for, or they don't know where to go to get it. I feel like people are feeling like, okay, folks, it's your responsibility, you have to tell me. And the thing that doesn't work out with that is I'm not being employed by my viewers. I'm not being employed by my viewers. I still have to go up. I have to go to work. I have to finish my education. I have to do whatever I have to do in order to continue to maintain my life offline. And the same can be said for so many other influencers. And even if influencers are taking on being in this internet space as a full-time job, they're still not being employed by viewers. They have to make decisions that will assist their viewers, but also make sure that they can stay afloat. Us as influencers providing hair care information doesn't mean that we should be uncomfortable, broke, or harmed in any way in the process of providing hair care information. I've noticed that, sometimes I've noticed in the past when I've expressed being uncomfortable with discussing a certain topic a certain way, discussing maybe products a certain way or something like that, I've had people people overlook my discomfort and say that instead what should be prioritized is how they're not able to access certain hair care information. And it just doesn't matter how I'm inconvenienced or anything like that. And so, I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt that people aren't intentionally doing that, because people don't know everything that goes into influencing. I didn't know until I got into it. But the thing is, it's kind of like how people talk about an airplane. On an airplane, you're supposed to put your mask on first, and then you're supposed to help your child or whoever can't help themselves with their mask, their oxygen mask. So it's the same thing with influencing. If I'm burnt out, tired, feeling taken advantage of by companies or whatever the case may be, then I can't continue to provide quality information. And the same goes for other influencers. It's not sustainable to think that, influencers should run themselves ragged or do things that don't feel the most comfortable for them or aren't in their best interest in order to fill that gap of people not getting the access to the hair care information that they need. It's just, that's not sustainable. That's not sustainable at all. And so, that's just a concern of mine. And at the same time, I understand where some people as viewers can really look up to influencers, because I have looked up to influencers and I felt like, okay, nobody else is giving me what I need in terms of hair care. In the past, I felt like nobody else is giving me what I need in terms of hair care. So I've looked to influencers, not realizing that what they're providing is a tremendous act of care and oftentimes a tremendous amount of vulnerability. So I know that so many people as viewers acknowledge that. I know that so many of you all are grateful. So many of you all shower me and other influencers with care. And I just want us to continue in understanding that it's an act of care and community when influencers are sharing hair care information, as opposed to it being this obligation to stand in the gap when there isn't hair care information accessible, an obligation in a way that is uncomfortable or unsettling or is not advantageous to that influencer. That's not sustainable. That's not sustainable. So what exactly does that mean for me? I'm not working to fulfill this obligation when people aren't able to access information. I'm here to provide what information I can when I'm able to. And also, I'm going to make sure to set my boundaries, and I'm going to share information in a way that's most comfortable for me. And whether that be my video format, the qualities of my video format, my editing, my discussion of products, I'm going to do things in a way that's most comfortable for me, but I'm also going to, when I'm able to, work my hardest to make sure that I'm able to help you all as my viewers. So there's that. The second thing that Afro Haircare accessibility is not. Afro Haircare accessibility is not professionals charging prices that puts their quality of life at stake. Let me say it one more time. Afro Haircare accessibility is not hair professionals or professionals that deal with hair in any way providing hair care information or services at prices that can compromise their quality of life. And so gas prices have went up. The cost of my personal rent at home has went up. I was talking to my hairstylist and she talked about the price of her suite has gone up. And so it only makes sense for her to raise her prices in terms of hair care in order for her to not only stay afloat, but to thrive in her business. So I'm very understanding of that. And I think that some people, they don't understand what it takes in order to run a business for maybe a trichologist or maybe a dermatologist or maybe a hairstylist or a beautician or loctician. I think the biggest ones are the beautician, loctician, cosmetologists that care for hair for us as people of African descent. I think that's the biggest one where people don't really understand what it takes in order to run those businesses and also survive, and not just survive, but thrive in those businesses. And so because of that, a lot of us, we are demanding hair care services at subpar prices. And that's not okay. I saw JC, a freshly rooted hairstylist, talking about, we can't expect prices for hair care services that were the prices from 10 years ago. We can't. I think that sometimes people get sticker shock because they're not sure how to contextualize the prices of, say, for example, curl artists. Curl artists are the people that I go to get my hair cut in its curly form. So, for example, my husband, he pays $20 to $30 every 2 weeks to get his beard shaped up and get his head shaved and all that jazz, to go to the barber. So $20 to $30 every 2 weeks. I go to my hairstylist every 3 months, right? And so let me make sure I get the numbers right. So if I was to look at how much my husband pays in order to go to a barber, he pays around $120 to $180 every 3 months. So I expect my curly cut amount to be within the $120 to $180 range every 3 months. That's what I expect. That's how much other people in a similar field to my hairstylist are charging. And then also she has all these different expenses that she has to attend to. But I think initially when people see a price like $150 for shampoo, condition, style, and haircut, they're like, that's too much. But people have to take into consideration, you're only coming every 3 months. So people don't consider factors like that. And then also I know some people take issue with the new client prices that some stylists are charging. And for some people, I will say that it's out of my price range, the new client prices that they're charging. But then also I have an understanding of why new client prices are higher than regular clients, because you never know. I think for hairstylists, you never know what somebody's going to bring in. And with the new client, these new client packages, largely including hair care education, you never know what kind of hair, the condition of somebody's hair that the person is going to bring in. And you also don't know what they're going to bring in mentally when you as a stylist, you're providing hair care education. I'm sure that stylists are having to combat like 15, 20, 30 years of miseducation and oppressive thinking and all sorts of things that somebody is bringing into the salon with them in order to learn how to care for their hair properly, right? And they might even be in that session dealing with someone's hair that has so much buildup and so much damage and so much this and so much that. And so I understand them charging a higher amount in order to provide education, in order to set aside whatever time is necessary to educate this person about their hair, in order to set aside whatever time is necessary to educate this person beyond the misinformation that they've had for years and years and years in one session. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. And it's not as quick as a service as somebody that's a regular client oftentimes. So I understand why some stylists are charging the prices that they're charging when it comes to new client intake. And I also want to say this. Now, I'm talking about dollars. And I'm located in the United States. I understand that me paying $150 for a haircut every 3 months, that's somebody's entire check, $150 for a month. In some other countries where the value of the dollar is astronomical. I understand that. But I want to specifically root my context for what I'm saying I'm paying, and me having an understanding of what curly cut artists and some other hairstylists are charging in terms of the West. So there's that. So I don't expect a hairstylist to charge bottom of the barrel prices in order to make hair care more accessible to more of a range of people at different price points, and then they're over here suffering. You remember the oxygen mask. If they're suffering, they can't pour into you. They can't give you that bomb fly haircut. They can't give you that bomb updo. They can't give you that bomb set of braids. They can't slay your relaxer if they are burnt out, woe out, and tired. So, that's what I think of. And so when it comes to that, when it comes to hairstylists charging prices where a lot of people aren't able to afford to come sit in their chair, I think that it's really commendable that some hairstylists are charging at a range of prices an amount for virtual hair care education, where some people can still get enough education in order to maintain healthy hair at a lower price than coming to sit in that hairstylist's chair. So I really commend stylists for doing that. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some stylists out there charging prices, and it's like, you look at the quality of their work and it's like, you have no business charging that price. So I'm not overlooking that reality, but the best way, I believe, to handle that reality of a hairstylist charging a price that they know they shouldn't be charging, or their work is subpar, I say we don't patronize. We don't pay for their services. Don't pay for their services. That's why I feel. You don't like their services, you don't like their price, don't pay for it. That's how I feel about it. And I think also people have to keep in mind that some forms of tight curl or hair care that's associated with people of African descent, some forms of tight curl education are still in their infancy in terms of being spread, or still in their, not infancy, still in their beginner stages in terms of being spread. I want to pause and say that the first place I heard about a sort of trickle down in hair care education as well as hair care services was from Elise Olarvia of Black Girl Curls. And the more the education is able to be spread globally to more people, I think that the more it would make sense that the more the price would drop. Like, can you imagine if they were offering curly cuts, like tight curly cuts in like hair school? And in hair school, people are often charging very low prices because people are still learning. And I know that there are some people in hair school currently that are taking tight curl education, and I'm sure that they aren't charging the same prices as someone that's already graduated. But those people aren't widespread. But what I'm saying is, can you imagine that it being at different levels of education, different parts of the world, more different parts of the world, for example, tight curl education, and that being able to contribute to the price being lower in terms of tight curl care when it comes to people doing like curly cuts and things like that. So that's just one form of hair care education associated with Black people. There are many other forms of hair care education associated with Black people that I can't wait to see spread more globally. Like, for example, in West Africa, the way that people, they kill updos. The updos are immaculate. I can't wait to see that form of hair care education spread more globally. So, Afro hair care accessibility is not product companies refraining from creating the most effective and safe products due to a need to cater to misinformation about ingredients. Afro hair care accessibility is not product companies refraining from creating the most effective and safe products due to a need to cater to misinformation about ingredients. So, unfortunately, many product companies have created the situation where they've scared us to death about ingredients. Ooh, these ingredients need to be natural in order for them to be better for us. And so, ooh, these things contain harmful chemicals. These things contain chemicals when water is a chemical. So companies did this sort of marketing, this rollout of marketing in the recent past, where there's just this overt emphasis on natural things that are considered natural being so much better. And because of that, some companies might not be participating in creating the most effective and safe and more easily accessible and affordable formulations because they're trying to cater to making sure not to upset consumers, because consumers have been misinformed about a lot of ingredients. So because so many companies have told us this ingredient's bad, that ingredient is bad, many of us as consumers have begun to echo misinformation about ingredients. I remember when I thought that this preservative was the source of a lot of my allergies when it comes to, not allergies, but was a source of like my irritation, my sensitivity and things like that. I thought that a particular preservative was what was really causing me an issue. And so I was talking to a hair product owner, and so I was like, maybe if we take this preservative out and we use something, and she quickly cut me off. I'm forever grateful for it. Was a product owner that was a pretty big deal, and I was so happy that for some reason she agreed to have a Zoom meeting with me and we talked. But she cut me off, and she was like, that preservative is absolutely necessary. And she explained to me the importance of that preservative in preventing her product from creating any harmful bacteria or growing any harmful bacteria or other microorganisms. And she had nothing to lose by telling me that or not telling me that. So I really took what she explained to me to heart. And since then, I have learned that the way that many of us are often reacting in terms of ingredients and think this is bad, that's bad. Some of these things that aren't natural and that are man-made actually could be more helpful to us. When I think about how badly natural fragrances can impact me, essential oil fragrances can impact me, as opposed to some synthetic fragrances that are often farther down in an ingredient list. So that's a factor that I think about. Everything is, just because something is more natural, that doesn't mean that it's better for us. That doesn't mean that it's better for us. So there's that. And then also, product companies might be able to create cheaper products that still work and that are safe. But because of this, I think it's called green scare, that's been created by companies, they're caught up in a bind where companies might be afraid to use certain ingredients. So something to consider. Oh, I also think about how like something like silicones. Like I've heard different discussion of, well, I more so apply this to skincare than my hair care. For hair care, I prefer like water soluble silicones. But with skincare, I've heard so much discussion about how silicones can be better for the skin because of the lower risk of allergic reaction to them, as opposed to other more natural butters and oils and things like that. And so, yeah, it just goes back to an understanding that natural is not always better. Companies need to just be able to make the products that are the cheapest, most effective, and the safest. Those three things, not just the cheapest, not just some bottle of the barrel crap that's gonna jack up your hair. It's not what I'm saying. Cheap, effective, safe. So I want to read this super important quote from Audrey Lord. So Audrey Lord in Age, Race, Class, and Sex, Women Redefining Difference, talks about the state of society. The state of society in, I think she was referring to the Western world, but really this could be applied to a lot of different contexts. And she says, in a society where the good is defined in terms of profit rather than in terms of human need, there must always be some group of people who, through systemized oppression, can be made to feel surplus. So she's really underlining society where good is determined. What is good is determined by profit, rather than what human beings need. So with Afro Haircare Accessibility, I'm proposing something radical in terms of there being a consideration of human need. People of African descent, their needs, considering our needs. And at the same time, also considering within those needs, how to assist us when it comes to health, wealth, both of those factors. Health, wealth, overall quality of life, and well-being. So I'm thinking of when I think of Afro Haircare Accessibility, I don't think of something that's solely eat them up and spit them out capitalistic, where there's just this overall focus on more so wealth. No, I'm thinking about our overall quality of life being improved. So therefore, as a offset, our hair will be improved. I'm thinking about our wealth being improved because of how we as people of African descent are such major contributors to the boom of the beauty care industry. We're such a major contributors to the boom of the beauty care industry. And so that contribution should be a part of what provides a lifeline to our communities. So basically what I'm saying, even in the minutia of hair care, we can work to center our needs, unify, and fortify our existence as people of African descent. Let me know, what are your thoughts about the concept of Afro hair care accessibility? What are some ways that you believe that hair care could be more accessible for people of helpful hair care could be more accessible for people of African descent globally? What are some ways you think that could happen? What are some ways that it's happening for you already, where you have better access to hair care information? Just let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. What I'm talking about right now is not set in stone. It's something I'm still working through, of course. And you all are major contributors that I'm very grateful for when it comes to how I think about hair care from a social justice perspective. So go ahead and like, comment, share, subscribe. Once again, my name is Fo. Bye-bye.